Today, we're going to pick the biggest hack of 2023. Let's remind everyone how this all works. There will be 11 categories of buffoon throughout this event, based upon the categories in my best-selling, award-winning book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, A Field Guide to Identifying Political Buffoons, which, by the way, is available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. Cheap plug, I know, but hey, that's how we roll. Our beautiful and lovely guests will nominate buffoons for each category. Just about anyone is eligible for nomination, with the exception of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Because let's face it, if they were to be nominated, they'd dominate just about every category, and we can't have that now, can we? It takes a majority of our guests voting for a particular buffoon to win that category. Buffoons can win in multiple categories, and each winner goes on to compete throughout the end of the year for your vote as Buffoon of the Year. So, before we get to the next segment, I've been bragging on all my guests. Brad, it's your turn. So, I'm pulling up just, look at that handsome guy. Look at that, right there on Town Hall as a contributor there, with one of your latest stories up there about MSNBC. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm primarily writing over at TownHall Media. I'm spending most of the time now at townhall.com, which you got up on screen, as well as Red State. And primarily what you're looking at right there is my daily column, which is called Rift from the Headlines. And I've been covering a variety of topics for years, politics and entertainment and the media. And then when the pandemic hit, entertainment shut down, because usually I cover the business side of Hollywood and the backstage things that go on with the studios. But when they shut down, I kind of had to segue more into the media side. So we sat down with some of my editors and we developed this daily column I put out where basically I lay out just how corrupt the media is anymore. Just how biased all the manufactured narratives, the malpractice that they engage in on behalf of one side, pushing narratives, all of that. And I lay it out with a number of different categories. And, we toyed with the idea of doing this for like maybe 2 days a week, 3 days a week, come up with 1 or 2 examples. I give 5 to 6, 7 examples on a daily basis, easy. It's just that monumental. And I cover national, local sports journalism, you name it. It's just so widespread. There's no shortage of material. So I do that at Town Hall. At Red State, I cover general politics and the media. And I also got a twice weekly podcast there called Liable Sources, where I kind of go a little bit deeper dive into the media mayhem that we see out there.
That's amazing. It feels like we do a lot of the same work in hunting for and finding these buffoons out there and bringing them to light. This is really cool. I've been a fan of your column on Town Hall for a while, because I know that you were part of the KLRN family, and it's great to finally get to talk to you on the show. Let everybody know how they can find you on social media as well, because listen, if you read the column, you're going to get a lot of good information, but I think you get a lot of the Brad snark that we're seeing on the show as well. The devil may care mentality that I think is a good thing when talking about these buffoons. So tell everybody how they can find you on social media as well.
Yeah, if you go over to Jitter, I am at Martini Shark, and you'll see my logo there now. Is basically I consider myself wearing the black hat in the media, because I'm just covering them so much over the years. I just get inundated with the way they behave. But maybe in the past year or so, I've really gotten almost fed up with the attitude from the media. It's almost as if, how dare you criticize us? Who are you to call us out? It's like, well, you're lying your ass off. Names at CNN will contact me in DM, for instance. Let me tell you something. And they're expecting me to back down and go, oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. And like, no, you lied your ass off. And I throw it right back in their face. And usually I get blocked, but for the most part, it's, I love call out what I see.
Listen, I love troublemakers. I love disruptors. That's why I'm glad to have you on the show, my friend. So thanks so much. I'm going to make sure all your information is down in the description below the video as well. Sure. But I'm also going to be leaning on you in talking about this next category. I know that we've skipped one, by the way, and we're going to get to it a little later.
Okay.
But because you were talking about the media, I think we need to talk about hacks. The hacks in media who are just, as you were saying, out there not only spreading misinformation, but making themselves the story as well, right? So let's talk
Oh yeah.
about these sorts of hack journalists out there who only care about spreading their beautiful narrative rather than talking about actual news and providing information to the public. And this year, as in past years, there is no shortage of hacks out there. The biggest video on my channel this year involved the Breakfast Club, the group on the radio here in the People's Republic of New York City, Charlemagne the God, and that ilk,
Oh right.
and was the biggest viewed channel, the biggest viewed video on my channel, I should say, was the interview with Vivek Ramaswamy, where Teslin Figaro, who goes on their show, basically made a complete fool of herself, asking about, well, what kind of service did you do? And made reference to how she was in the 5th grade standing up for students against a teacher or whatever, and how that's real service as compared to Ramaswamy, who just created multi-million-dollar companies, produced life-saving drugs, and that's not real service. He's just a Johnny come lately.
In the 6th grade, Miss Harris was snatching papers from everybody in the classroom. So me as a 10-year-old, I went to the principal and said, I'm tired of Miss Harris snatching papers. And I organized the students around getting Miss Harris to stop snatching papers. Now, there was a consequence for that. I got suspended for 5 days for talking back, and I got in trouble. I got a spanking, and I was on punishment for months and months. But that is a simple way of organizing people. So I want you to kind of boast about it the way you did the millions of dollars and said what you did with the pharmaceutical companies. What leadership can you point to that you've been able to rally anybody around anything that is of service that you did not pay anybody to do? I think that's important for the next president of the United States.
Sure.
So forget about all that life-saving stuff you've done. What'd you do in the 6th grade? If it wasn't on tape, I wouldn't have believed that this is the actual conversation that he had to put up with. So, but that's only one example of the Breakfast Club being buffoons. They did the same thing with Larry Elder and going after him and basically calling him out for being black and Republican. Just show after show of everyone on the show. I mean, DJ Envy as well is on there. They were, to me, the biggest buffoons in the media that I saw. Brad, what do you think about the Breakfast Club?
I'm not very well versed in them. I'm familiar with them because there's, content flares up every now and then. But usually that time of day, I'm watching Morning Joe because they're just.
Oh, you poor man.
Well, it's kind of like I have to, but at the same time, I try to back away because I don't want to be overly reliant either. It's more, if I'm stuck for some material, I can always go. There's always Morning Joe. Since Brian Stelter is no longer around, they're a good fallback. If I'm, my column's a little wanting. It's like, what did ScarJo say this morning? There we go. But there's actually no short. You talk about Ramaswamy. I think one of my favorite moments was when he was on the still behind the desk for Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. And Chuck Todd was challenging him on the issue of transgenderism. He's like, how can you say that a biological male is still a male? Where do you get this from? And he's like, I went to Harvard and have a master's in biology.
So I think it is perfectly reasonable to say that if you're after 18 years old, you're free to decide whatever you want to do. That's what it means to live in a free country. But below the age of 18, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say that we won't allow genital mutilation or chemical castration through puberty blockers for the purpose of gender transition.
But how do you know it's that? Again, how do you know? Are you confident that you know that gender is as binary as you're describing it? Are you confident that it isn't a spectrum?
I am.
Do you know this as a scientist?
Well, there's 2 X chromosomes if you're a woman, an X and a Y. That means
There's
you're a
a
man.
lot
So
of
there's a
scientific
biological basis
research
for
out
this.
there. There's a lot of scientific research out there that says gender is a spectrum.
Chuck, I respectfully disagree. Gender dysphoria for most of our history, all the way through the DSM-5, has been characterized as a mental health disorder, and I don't think it's compassionate to affirm that. I think that's cruelty.
Speaking of Ramaswamy, Rachel, he was the slayer of Don Lemon as well. Ramaswamy was out there in the media. He went to go with Al Sharpton. He went on CNN with Don Lemon as well. He went with so many. I mean, there was one other CNN woman. I forget her name. Abby Phillip, I think it was. And Ramaswamy went onto all these shows this year, and he went into the trenches with a lot of this leftist media, and for the most part came out on top. Is there any media person that caught your attention this year at all for being especially dumb?
Definitely on oh gosh, I can't remember what channel that she's on. But her name is Joy, and
Joy Reid, MSDNC. Yep.
yes. Yep. And she stated this year that um that the voters don't actually know what inflation is, and they're using words that the general person does not use in their lexicon, that Republicans are using these big like words that are based in economics that people don't know what they're talking about.
The people I ever hear use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk. So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it, including on TV, including in newspapers. They've been taught this word, and they sort of wrap this word around whatever it is that they really want to vote.
Well, any of us could go to the grocery store and we can see what inflation is when we see how much the eggs were costing this year. I mean, it's a pretty understandable subject. She's so out of touch.
Absolutely. I mean, the arrogance of the media and the insulting of their audience is nothing new for 2023. I'll definitely put Joy Reid up there as a nominee just on general principle. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. Rick, the media showed themselves for being fringe leftists when it came to the topic of the conflict between Israel and Hamas. And we saw a couple of hosts actually lose their job at MSDNC, including Ayman Moyeldin, who basically on October 8th came out on MSDNC and blamed Israel and the U.S. for Hamas shooting thousands of rockets at Israel.
But Hamas is saying, well, if nobody is able to defend what is happening for Palestinians in the West Bank or in East Jerusalem, with the home demolitions, the arrests, the children being killed, the desecration of holy sites, if they're unable to do that, then we only have the ability to do it with military might and crude weapons and military. And what we're seeing today are very deadly consequences of failed policies, failure on the American administration's part to change course, to take a different course of action with how it deals with the Palestinians and the Israelis, failure on Israel's part, failure on the region's part, to not be able to say, this is an issue that matters.
Is this the year that the mask slipped off the media?
I think it was the year that the mask fell off during COVID, but I think this was the year the mask was burned. It can't be put back on again, because they've just come out as being completely just elitist. They don't believe any of the things that we believe, and they just throw it back on our faces now. And it's not just the media. The scariest thing is, I mean, if I had to nominate just out of nowhere, like the biggest buffoon of the year would probably be higher education, because everybody that's coming out of those things now. I mean, hell, one of my most viral comments of the last 2 weeks on Twitter was making fun of a guy for calling Jesus an illegal immigrant. He's got a doctorate. And I said, you got your degree from Harvard, didn't you? It's been viewed over 12,000 times and climbing. Just because, I mean, Harvard used to be like the epitome of American higher education. Now it's going to be the butt of all jokes for at least the next 10 to 15 years, unless they make changes. Because
one of the things I love whenever I go into court, and I know I'm going up against to argue against an Ivy League other attorney, and I'm the type of attorney that's always been down in the trenches. I love going and arguing with Ivy League people because they always seem to argue above the issue rather than going directly at an issue. And my experience has always been that I wipe the floor with them. And I'm not just saying because I'm a halfway decent lawyer. I'm saying that because I think that the problem with anyone that comes out of the Ivy League, whether it be a hack journalist or anybody else, is that they always see themselves above everything because of where they are and who they are and all of that. Is that anybody else's experience when it comes to Ivy League buffoons?
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, I don't interact with them quite to the level that you do, but yeah, I've found that most of them just I don't know.
Well,
they come at things from a completely different angle than I do, and normally after 2 or 3 exchanges online, I just give up. Yep.
Of course, I come at a completely different angle. I'm 5'11".
Because you're small. That's funny.
You're such a heightist.
I am the ultimate heightist. I am the ultimate heightist. Absolutely.
Should we tell them how tall I am?
Oh, are you the tallest in here? Please tell me you're the tallest in here.
He is by far.
Oh yeah, like basketball tall?
No, but NHL defenseman tall.
Oh, okay, not bad. Not bad. I appreciate
I'm
that.
6'5".
Yeah, there you go. Great. All right. Head and shoulders above me. But you see, I don't mind. I know it bothers Rick though. Anyway, so one of the funnier points that I remember, and Brad, let me know if you cover this as well. But there's a Washington Post journalist named Emily Heil who was covering something with Dave Portnoy and tried to get him in a gotcha situation, and Portnoy outed her immediately.
We have this pizza fest happening on Saturday, and you're reaching out to our advertisers, and you're basically sending an email that says to the effect, Dave's a misogynist racist. Do you want to defend yourselves advertising at this event, right?
I'm sorry, what's your name, Dave? I'm sorry, who are you?
I'm the guy you're writing the article about, Dave Portnoy.
Oh, you're Dave Portnoy. Oh, hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. No, I'm not. I haven't said anything like that.
I can read if you want. If you want, I can read what you actually sent. I have it.
Yeah, read, because I sent a bunch of notes, so I want to make sure I know which one.
Okay. We are planning to write about the festival and how some of the sponsors and participants have drawn criticism by seemingly to associate themselves with Dave Portnoy, who has a history of misogynic comments and other problematic behavior. I want to make sure that Blank had a chance to respond to this, since the company is the most prominent of their partners of his festival.
Oh, that's the one I sent to, which was definitely the most pointed of them, because I really did want them to respond, and I was hoping to get something from them.
Do you think that's fair? Like, I totally disagree with the assertions of what you said, that misogynic and all that stuff. So, like, it kind of backs people into a corner. So I'm happy to go over anything. I mean, that is pretty pointed. You said you didn't do it. Then I have the exact evidence of you doing it. So
no, I didn't say I didn't do that. I said I did. That was the one that was the most pointed.
Well, no, before I provided proof, you said you didn't really remember doing that, and then I read it to you, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I did it that one time." So,
yeah, I covered that story rather extensively too, so I know exactly what it was. And she was basically engaging what is become a pattern of behavior. We see this across the media landscape, but especially in print journalism, and that is, they develop a hit piece. They have it primarily written. They go to their sources on speed dial and drop the entire article. And then the target of their article gets contacted at the last minute. And she did this with Portnoy, where she said, we're making this article up about your pizza event. And she had everything laid out already before she came to him for comment. And he said, well, I don't really know you, and I want to get a couple of details, and found out that she had been contacting advertisers trying to submerge his event and get him to pull out. Did you know he's a sexist? Did you know he's got these sex crimes in the past? After all of that, she went to Portnoy. And then he said, let me get a couple things in line here, called her out, and then said, let's call back tomorrow at a certain time. She's like, absolutely. And then, of course, she bailed out on it. And he completely submarined her article before it was even in print. It was a beautiful
thing. It was an absolutely beautiful thing.
But this is standard practice. We see this all the time with politicians here in Florida, where I live. They do this to DeSantis and his spokespersons all the time. They do this with libs of TikTok.
I was just about to bring up libs of TikTok. Absolutely. Taylor Lorenz, I'll give this to Rachel. The outing of basically the doxing and the outing of Libs of TikTok by Taylor Lorenz, who works for the Washington Post as well. This is the left's game, I guess, is going after targets, and then, as Brad was saying, trying to get comment afterwards after the damage has been done in the process of creating this story.
Yeah, doxing has gotten out of control, and I think that we'll continue to see that that as culture gets more hostile and divided, that we'll see more people attacked like this and doxed. It's really dangerous.
I will say this though: the good news is that it's getting its blowback as well, because Taylor Lorenz tried this last year with Libs of TikTok, and then it was exposed when she was doing it to other accounts. This year, she's been a lot less consequential, because when those practices were basically exposed, they took charge over at Washington Post. They made her have to submit to 2 different editors. She was basically stepped on at the Post because they were sick and tired of all the blowback from her alleged journalism. So she's been a lot quieter this year, which is a good thing, because I find it's a great example of how to push back against this and get an effective result out of it.
I'm hoping that is the case, but 2024 is coming, and I feel like we're in the eye of the hurricane right now, and the storm is about to pick up really, really strongly. At least I hope that what you're saying is true. But let's get to voting here, because we need to pick a hack for this year. We've had a lot of different examples between Emily Heil we talked about. We've talked about the Breakfast Club. Ayman Moyeldin from MSDNC. Don Lemon was thrown in there as well. You can even throw in Brianna Joy Gray from the Hills Rising channel as well. She's always
well, I've got a last one I can throw in real quick.
Do it, dog!
While Moyeldin is pretty bad at MSNBC, I think Mehdi Hassan is worse, because I've been tracking him throughout the year too. Because as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be doing end of the year pieces. I do what's called the TownHall 50, and I rank out the worst 50 journalists every year. He's a clubhouse leader, I'll just say that, in the top 10. And he's been bad all year. But when the explosiveness took place in Israel in October, he got so bad, they pulled not 1, but 2 of his programs off. And between Yeldin himself and a few others, that whole weekend on October 7, MSNBC was so pro-Hamas that it ended up hurting the network. All the news networks were seeing explosive ratings because of the war coverage. Fox, CNN, News Nation, everybody was seeing this huge upswell. MSNBC lost about 30% of its audience the same week because they were so sick and tired of their coverage that was pro-Hamas. And I think Mehdi Hassan led that charge. So I definitely would throw him in the mix.
There's a lot of people at MSDNC that we can point to. We've talked about Joy Reid. We talked about Morning Joe. We talked about Mehdi Hassan now. Ayman Moyeldin. You can throw Al Sharpton in there as well, although he's not so consequential anymore because he's on the weekends. You can literally throw MSDNC in collectively as the hack if that's what you guys want to do. But if there's one particular journalist out there that you think was the worst, you can also single them out as well. Brad, you're the most knowledgeable on this subject. Who was the biggest hack of 2023?
Well, I mean, since you're going to allow the network, I'm going to say MSNBC, because they have they've really gone off the deep end as far as partisanship. What cracks me up is all the complaints about Fox News. They put out misinformation. They have the least informed audience. But if you watch MSNBC with any duration, and I watch a lot of it, you want to talk about some fever dream, chicken little pie in the sky nightmares. They spew it out on a daily basis. I mean, they just had Jen Psaki's show the other day, had someone come on and say, Donald Trump is going to close businesses, arrest people, shut down the internet if he's elected.
The sky is falling. Are you crazy?
Of course he is. He's the boogeyman.
Kind of day-to-day stuff they have on that network. So yeah, there's so many to choose from. I have to go with the entire network.
That's no problem. I'm going to go with Teslin Figaro only because I want this to be a shout out to her for thanking her for giving me over close to 44,000 views on a little piddly channel like mine. because she was such a buffoon to Vivek Ramaswamy. So here's to you, Teslin. You're getting my vote. Thank you very much for all the traffic. Rick, who you got?
Oh, I don't know. I kind of have to go the easy route.
Of course.
And just pick the network, because I mean, there's just so many. I mean, there's names we haven't even gotten to yet that are just terrible on that network. And I know, because I make it a habit of switching between networks. Like I have different days where I'll watch different networks, and MSNBC.
Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow, and I mean, there's no shortage of mayhem over there.
Yeah, Mad Cow was one of the ones that I feel like we kind of left off the table, but then again, she hasn't really been doing anything too crazy lately.
I think you can't put someone like Rachel Maddow in for the biggest hack of 2023 because she has raised the bar so much on herself that she hasn't topped herself from the Russia days during the Trump administration. So while, yes, she's a buffoon all the time, I don't think that she distinguished herself as a buffoon so much in 2023. Same thing with Chris Hayes or anything like that. I think that there's a bar that has been raised. Their buffoonish nature is so high up that for them to do anything that would be a distinguishable level of buffoonery would have to be so stratospheric that it would have to dominate a news cycle for like a month or something like that. So
she did come close with one time. She had a show where she was reporting on a gun maker that put out a weapon that had a skull and crossbones with a pacifier. And this was it's a training rifle for kids, like 12 entering their teens, that kind of thing. She was claiming with a straight face that this gun maker was manufacturing guns for infants.
But for all our diversity, I think that we Americans can all probably agree. I think we can all come together around the somewhat obvious idea that if there is one consumer product that America needs, one thing we're just missing as a country, it's probably a gun that is specifically designed for babies. A gun specifically designed to be wielded by babies. Specifically, an assault rifle style semi-automatic long gun made to look kind of like the civilian version of a US military issue M4 rifle, but sized down. So like toddlers can use them. Not toy guns, not like super soakers, squirt guns, not BB guns, not cap guns, real guns that fire real bullets.
And she had a 5-minute report on this expose that they are manufacturing this for infants and toddlers.
Because the dexterity of infants is such that they can manipulate a trigger.
The gun weighs more than them, but sure, Rachel. Okay, let's just go with that. Fantastic work.
Craziness. All right, Rachel, my dear, you are the last to vote on this category. Do you have a hack, or you can pick MSDNC as much as the boys have? But if you have someone to vote for, you want to pick, go for it.
Oh, I'll go with Taylor Lorenz because I'm hoping that that the public can really turn against the act of doxing, because it's really it needs to go in 2024.
I appreciate that immensely. It looks like the boys have it with MSDNC collectively.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.